Hi there, welcome to the first GoBots video on the channel. Won't be the last one though, because I just put up a new poll on Patreon asking for what everyone there wanted to be the next history of video, and GoBots 83 won the poll. So that is going to be the next history of video, but until that one comes out, taking a look at not a GoBot from 1983, but one from 1984. LEADER-1, which is peculiar, and I'll go into that in the history of video in a couple of weeks, but LEADER-1 was released in 1984, the following year, while the Leader of the Bad Guys, Psykill, was released in the first year of GoBots, 1983. So kind of weird. It's almost like if Optimus Prime had been released the year after Megatron. Kind of strange. But this is LEADER-1, originally released in Japan under the Machine Robo line as Eagle Robo in 1983. He's about the size of a G1 Minibot, about the same price point too. These went for about $2 or $3 American back in the day. This particular one has a pretty loose nose cone on it. He's got a little bit more die-cast. GoBots in general have a little bit more die-cast than the original Minibots had, and they're more realistic looking. The Minibots were more cutesy, super deformed, while this looks like a closer to a real jet. And alongside a G1 Starscream, he's a little tiny guy, little Hot Wheel sized guy next to Starscream. So I remember when GoBots first came out, one whole year before Transformers, and they were never really looked at as they are these days. Quite honestly, they're kind of the redheaded stepchild. Hasbro ended up acquiring the rights, and now Hasbro owns GoBots, but a lot of people think GoBots were inferior to Transformers, but I distinctly remember from the schoolyard days, GoBots were the affordable option. Not a lot of families had a lot of money back then. So it was cool to be able to go to a grocery store or a toy store, Kmart, Toys R Us if you were lucky to have one in your town, and be able to buy a toy. So that was the case for a lot of G.I. Joe, Real American Hero figures, and with GoBots as well. There were lots of GoBots released over the years, not too many Minibots or cassettes for Transformers, which were in the same price point. And yeah, you were very lucky if you got one of these bigger Transformers or one of the Cars or Optimus or Megatron. But for a lot of families, that was more a birthday, Christmas type of thing, whereas GoBots were just a trip to the store, bring home a toy. And LEADER-1 was definitely one of the more sought after GoBots back then. Great looking robot mode, great looking jet mode. A couple nice little details on them as well, despite the tiny size of them. Some nice detailing on the rear engines here. It does have wheels underneath that do roll. And on his undercarriage, these were made by Bandai in Japan under the Machine Robo line, 1983 Japan. And there's some writing here in Japan. So I'm not sure if this is actually a Machine Robo, Eagle Robo, or if it's a North American GoBot, LEADER-1. I'm not sure if the North American releases just kept that same stamp on there. And it is one of the more complicated conversions, not transformations, they're called conversions. Transformers transform, GoBots convert. So all you gotta do is pull the legs out like that, fold the wings back, and then these fins can fold either forward like that. I guess you can do them like that as well. That might actually help him with standing if you want, or if you prefer how that looks, you can go like that, and then the nose cone is just eager to flip down like that, kind of backwards from Starscream. And then the arms come out, and much like with Transformers, sometimes the transformation adds some articulation, so because of the way his arms transform, that gives him the ability to more movement in his shoulders, shrugging. I guess they didn't have to add this point of articulation, it could have just been like that, but luckily they put that on a swivel. He's got a full 360 on his arms. Unfortunately, no leg articulation, it's just comes straight out like that. So pretty much what you see on a mini-bot, but looks more like a larger Autobot car in proportions. This power glide is really stiff. This must be a reissue. So LEADER-1 is a little taller, proportions are a little better, less super deformed, cutesy looking. Got some nice stickers on him too, very shiny, chrome, glossy stickers on the chest. These are in really good condition for how old this thing is. It wasn't too long ago that I picked this up. So whoever had it before me, other than transforming it a bunch of times, which loosened this nose cone, kept it in really nice shape. You can see the cockpit right here has some translucent plastic and an extra little detail. I love stuff like this. There's a little shiny sticker in the cockpit. Totally not necessary. These days they would cut corners and leave that out, but this is what I love about vintage toys. Going the extra mile just so that we get a little bit of that glimmering shine in the cockpit in there. Really nice looking robot mode to him. Looks great proportions. The head is fantastic. I always loved the gold visor on LEADER-1, and the paint on it is still fantastic. Nice and shiny. And to finish off, here's a 360 of LEADER-1 in his robot mode. And even though he doesn't have very much articulation, much less articulation than Optimus Prime, much smaller than Optimus Prime, gotta have the ability to raise your hand in the air to spur on your troops. Looks great from all sides, really. The lore of GoBots might not match up to Transformers, with not just G1, but all of the different incarnations, comics, cartoons, video games. But as far as the toys themselves went, back in a simpler time, and a time with less money for toys, I always appreciated the GoBots. I thought they were a lot of bang for your buck back then. You get basically a Hot Wheels jet, and also a pretty decent looking robot. That's it for the LEADER-1 review, but be sure to check back on the channel in a couple of weeks, maybe a couple months, depending on how busy I am, for the History of GoBots 1983 edition. Thanks again to the Patreon tribe for voting for that one. I wouldn't have gotten to GoBots for quite some time. I've been meaning to, but luckily the Patreon polls sometimes make these things a priority. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, Nerdmas Day.